Very sensitive topic, circumcision. And I've done a lot. There's been a lot of information on the internet coming out. I guess there in the Boston Globe a few months back, there was an article about the government introducing the idea of making circumcision universal, a universal requirement for all boys born. So that brought up a whole other group of issues, because some parents who are opposed to it, of course, if you go online, if you go to YouTube and you search circumcision, you can't even imagine the information that comes up. There are people dedicating themselves to educating parents about the options and really explaining why they are in favor or against. I am absolutely in favor of the option of choice. I don't think the government should mandate a universal option at all. I think that's kind of a violation.
What was the reasoning behind that?
Because they say that there's some evidence that suggests that people who aren't circumcised have an increased risk of HIV and other diseases and cancer and things like that. But the research that provided those statistics is also in question.
And is it the same research that decided in some other countries that women shouldn't have a clitoris because it could bring them too much pleasure?
Right. Well, and that's actually the argument against from a lot of people. A lot of men feel that circumcision is male genital mutilation, and there is a lot of evidence that says that people who are circumcised have reduced sensitivity, so their sexual experience is a lot less pleasurable. And then the whole issue is, do you want to make a decision for your son that could impact his life like that? And there's actually there are products that have been introduced to the marketplace for men who were circumcised who would like to regrow. It's called, I think it's like a regrowth program.
It's possible?
It is possible, and there are sites and people who are providing information on this.
I just had a discussion with a friend of mine who wasn't able to come to the night's group, but she said that she read an article, and I apologize, I haven't had the time to locate the article, but she has read that there are actually studies that show that uncircumcised men, they can lead to a woman getting some specific type of squamous cell cancer, just having not have been circumcised. I don't even know the connection, but I'd be interested in finding out more about that, because if that's a fact, then there's justification for circumcision. But personally, we circumcised our 3 boys not for any religious reason, or I think just because it seems to be the thing to do. It's kind of the norm, and we just, we went with it. But that was really the only reason. I was actually pretty concerned about the poor little babies at the time. That was my big concern. I really wanted to make sure they weren't going to be in pain.
We went with what we knew, which was circumcision, and I didn't give it any thought. It just was what my family had done, what my husband's family had done, and I remember when the boys were getting circumcised, I had just given birth, so I'm like, one for me and one for you. It just felt like, it's just, it is what it is. I didn't even think about it, but I also remember they got pain medication, but I thought, welcome to life. I don't know, but I don't have an opinion on it. If you don't want to do it, I think it's fine, and if you do, it's fine too.
None of our guys are circumcised. Actually, all 4 of my sons are not circumcised.
Really gonna appreciate that when they get older and watch your videos.
I may not include. Well, more than anything, I just feel that they. I just didn't want I didn't want them to have unnecessary surgery, and that was it. It just was an easier taken care of.
From what I understand, in America, it's more of a cultural thing. I heard so many people said to me, well, you don't want them to feel uncomfortable in the locker room later.
I've heard that.
That was a huge comment when we were talking about it. In some countries, nobody's circumcised. So
Right.
if they got circumcised, it would be for religious reasons, and then they would have the opposite. I personally hadn't given it a second thought until my son was born, and then it was presented to me, and I looked at my husband and said, I don't know, what do you want to do? And he said, don't do it. Don't, God made him that way, and that's the way he should stay. And I thought, okay, I don't really have a preference on it. The interesting thing, so we chose not to do it. His foreskin was so tight that we ended up having, at 2 years old, to get him circumcised later. Talk about
Is
feeling
that a
guilty and
common-
pressure.
Oh, yeah. Is that a common thing, do they say?
It's
or-
not that common, but we didn't really have a choice. It
Yeah.
was-
Well, that's understandable. though.
Right.
Yeah,
That's a different.
right,
Situation.
and it now it kind of looks a little botched, and like
Yeah.
if they had done it when he was born, then it would look. At any rate, he's fine.
What do you ever, does this ever come up in your practice?
Never. Never does.
Never, okay. So nobody goes to the locker room and thinks, I am or I'm not, and,
Not necessarily about this issue.
yeah. I don't think it's a big deal. You do or you don't.
Advocating online against circumcision is male, it seems, the majority,
That would
and they
make
have
sense.
very strong views. And I won't even say that they're religious views. They're the general gist of their opposition is that they feel that this is the way someone was born, this is the way they should remain. And so
The one thing about female genital, mutilation and circumcision is the difference, because I've heard the two compared, is that, I would certainly never circumcise my son to punish him or do him
Well, the reasoning behind it. is-
harm.
Yes.
Right. I have a very clear distinction in my mind between the two. Sometimes people will say, well, you're doing the same thing to your son as they're doing in Africa to the women. But the reasoning seems so different that I don't even think about it that way. It's like, no, I wouldn't do him harm on purpose. Even though, yes, I did have him circumcised.
right.
But you did it because everybody
It's
else did it.
more of a
That's what you
cultural
thought.
norm.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
That you should. And
Right.
like I said, I would have done it if my husband
Right.
hadn't stepped in and said, "Wait a minute, let's rethink this."
Right.
She's from Pakistan, and she said that it's customary there. They circumcise at an older age. They have a big ceremony. I don't know if it's just before puberty or something. I mean, these are young boys. They're not babies anymore.
It was something that our family did. We looked at some of the literature and we tried to make an informed decision, but there was nothing really compelling that made us sway the way our family had done it.
Right.
I watched it. I sat in for the procedure.
Oh.
So I thought, well, if I'm going to have him go through this, I should be there with him.
No fainting?
No, even the pediatrician said, are you sure you want to sit here and do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I did it. Even my friends are surprised. I can't believe you sat and watched it. Well, then if I was that squeamish, I shouldn't have had him go through it. He's
Right.
a newborn.
Right, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes.
What a good dad.
I'm a good dad.
When I looked into it some more, I found that there was actually no proof
Right.
that there was any reason that you should have to do that.
Right. There isn't. And
There's-
actually, there's a couple.
Right.
There's no.
I think
there
from
isn't any.
old.
There's a lot of
traditions,
right. There's a
ancient
really
traditions.
interesting
Bible.
on Momversations. Actually, I can email if anyone wants this. There's a woman who replied to the circumcision discussion on Momversations, and she cites like 50 reasons why it's totally unnecessary. Going back to history, like she finds all these. It was just a really great response.
One thing that did pique my interest, though, was the whole idea of it possibly causing cancer in women. I'm definitely going to look into that more. I mean, I don't know if it's unjustified or.
That probably has to do in poor countries where cleanliness
That's a lot of
is not an issue. And
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine.
I think for poor countries where hygiene is an issue,
But
that there are more
I
concerns.
mean, we're not talking about an infection.
well,
Caused
some
by.
infections cause cancer, so.